Mark wasn't the kind of guy who jumped to conclusions. He was practical, logical, some might even say a bit too laid back. He had been married to Vanessa for 4 years, together for 6, and while their relationship had the usual ups and downs, he'd never suspected anything shady. That is, until 6 months ago, when things started to feel off. It wasn't anything obvious at first. Little things. Vanessa, who used to leave her phone anywhere, couch, table, even the bathroom, suddenly started carrying it everywhere. It became her new emotional support device. Even when she was just going to the kitchen for water, the phone was glued to her hand like a lifeline. Mark, being the hilarious guy he was, made a joke about it. "What are you, a secret agent now, running some underground spy operation?" Vanessa chuckled. "Oh no, work's just been emailing me a lot." Sure, because corporate emails at 9 p.m. were a normal thing for someone who worked in marketing. Then, a few days later, she added a password to her phone. That one caught him off guard. She'd never used one before, mostly because she had nothing to hide. When he casually asked why, she muttered something about security and hackers. Hackers. Because cybercriminals were just dying to get into her phone and steal her pictures of overpriced brunches. Then came the phone calls. She used to take calls right in front of him. Nothing secretive about it. Now, she'd pick up, say, "Oh, it's just a work friend," and leave the room. Sometimes she'd go outside. Sometimes she'd sit in the car. Sometimes she'd whisper like she was in the middle of some FBI stakeout. And then, the grand finale, the face-down phone placement. She never used to care if her phone was screen up, screen down, sideways, or upside down. But suddenly, it was always face down, like she was hiding incoming messages from the Pentagon. Mark wasn't a paranoid guy, but even he had to admit, it was starting to look a little weird. And then came the moment that sent his gut into a full-blown oh hell no spiral. One day, Vanessa told him she was going for coffee with a friend after work. Nothing unusual. She did that from time to time. But by pure coincidence, Mark happened to be running errands in the same area. He figured, hey, why not surprise her? It'll be cute. When he arrived at the coffee shop, she wasn't inside chatting with her friend. Nope. She was outside, pacing back and forth on the sidewalk, phone pressed to her ear, looking like she was negotiating a hostage situation. Mark stayed in his car. He didn't mean to eavesdrop, but her voice carried just enough for him to catch snippets. "It's almost ready. Starting fresh soon." His stomach dropped. Starting fresh soon? With what? A new job? A new hobby? A new life? Mark sat there, gripping the steering wheel as realization started to sink in. Something was up, and whatever it wasn't good. That night, when she came home, he played it cool, asked how her coffee date went. Vanessa smiled and spun a totally believable, completely fictional story about how her friend was complaining about her boyfriend. Mark just nodded, smiled, said nothing. But inside, he was already 10 steps ahead. Mark didn't say anything that night, or the next night, or the next week. He just watched. And let's just say, Vanessa wasn't exactly subtle. She had always been a little careless about their finances. Not reckless, just the kind of person who thought budgeting was a theoretical concept. But all of a sudden, she was very interested in money. One evening, out of nowhere, she casually said, "Hey, do you think we should organize all our financial stuff? You know, passwords, bank details, investment accounts, just in case." Just in case? Mark stared at her, wondering if she had forgotten who she was married to. He wasn't born yesterday. He was born many yesterdays ago. "What kind of emergency are we talking about here?" he asked, keeping his tone light. She shrugged, eyes glued to her phone. "Oh, just being smart. What if something happens to one of us?" Ah, right. Because obviously the first thing a loving wife does when she's concerned about her husband's well-being is ask for his banking passwords. Mark didn't push. Instead, he did what any rational man in his position would do. He got himself a lawyer. Enter Jeff, the college buddy turned divorce attorney. Jeff was the kind of guy who had seen it all. When Mark laid out the situation, Jeff just sighed, sat back in his chair and said, "Yeah, man, this isn't looking great for you." "Fantastic. So what do I do?" "Protect yourself. Move your assets. Lock everything down before she makes her move." And that's exactly what Mark did. Over the next few days, he transferred everything, cash, investments, even the house, into a trust under his mother's name. Vanessa could demand half of his money all she wanted, but the joke was on her. He didn't have any money anymore, legally speaking anyway. By the time Vanessa finally sat him down for the talk TM, Mark already knew what was coming. She turned off the TV, took a deep breath, and in her most calm, prepared, "I've been practicing this in the mirror" voice, said, "I think we should get a divorce." Mark blinked. That was it? No build-up, no dramatic speech, just straight to the point like she was canceling a gym membership? He nodded slowly. "If that's how you feel, I guess we should figure out the next steps." Vanessa looked surprised, almost offended that he wasn't arguing, begging, or at least doing a dramatic why, Vanessa, why. But Mark was way past that. Then she dropped the real bomb. "You know, I've made a lot of sacrifices for you over the years, and I don't think you really appreciate them. I deserve more." Ah, there it was, the "I deserve more" speech. Mark had been expecting something along these lines, but hearing it still made his eye twitch. Because, let's review. He had moved closer to her job, doubling his commute. He had paid for her yoga retreats, her impulsive career changes, her expensive hobbies. He had been the supportive husband who listened to her endless rants about her friends, her boss, her latest existential crisis. And now, she was sitting there, calmly explaining that she deserved more. Mark resisted the urge to laugh, not because it was funny, but because the sheer audacity was genuinely impressive. "A friend of mine has been helping me see things more clearly," she continued. Oh, a friend. Now Mark wasn't a betting man, but if he had to put money on it, he'd say this friend was named Jake. Because guess what name kept popping up in Vanessa's social media likes and comments? Whose photo just happened to be tagged at the same coffee shop on the same day Mark overheard her little starting fresh phone call? Jake. Mark didn't say anything. He just nodded, pretending like he hadn't already put the whole puzzle together. A couple of days later, the divorce papers arrived. And wow, Vanessa wasn't just leaving, she was trying to take everything. Half the house, half the savings, half the investments, the car, and, just for fun, spousal support. Never mind the fact that she had a high-paying job and a brand-new friend to support her. No, Vanessa still wanted her cut. Too bad for her, there was nothing left to take. Mark wasn't mad. No, mad was for amateurs. Mark was thrilled. See, Vanessa thought she had the perfect plan. She'd waltz into that divorce lawyer's office, lay out her demands, and walk away with half of Mark's hard-earned assets while holding hands with her shiny new boyfriend, Jake. There was just one tiny problem. Mark had already outplayed her. The first mediation session was a thing of beauty. Vanessa arrived with her lawyer, a guy who looked like he charged per syllable, and they were ready to go to war. Mark, meanwhile, was as calm as a man who knew the ending of the movie before it even started. His lawyer, Jeff, sat beside him, looking almost bored. The opposing lawyer cleared his throat and got to work. "Ms. Carter is requesting an equitable division of assets, including half of the marital home, savings, investments, and an appropriate amount of spousal support, given the financial disparity." Mark stopped listening around the time the guy said equitable. Instead, he focused on Vanessa. She was sitting there, smug, confident, convinced that she had him cornered. Oh, sweet summer child. Finally, it was Jeff's turn. He slid a stack of papers across the table and said, as casually as if he were discussing the weather, "Before we proceed, I believe these documents will clarify a few things." Vanessa's lawyer picked them up, started flipping through them, then his face fell. Vanessa frowned. "What?" Her lawyer turned to her, visibly irritated. "You didn't tell me about this." Vanessa snatched the papers. Her eyes darted across the pages, and then, boom, there it was. Every major asset legally transferred to Mark's mother weeks ago, before she even filed for divorce. Completely legal, completely untouchable. Her face turned red. This can't be real. Mark, finally speaking for the first time, just leaned forward and smiled. Oh, it's real. She turned to him, her voice dropping to a furious whisper. You planned this. You knew I was going to file, and you set this up to screw me over. Mark just shrugged. I like to think of it as insurance. The room went dead silent. Vanessa's lawyer was flipping through the documents like he could magically find a loophole, but there wasn't one. Everything was airtight. After a painfully long pause, her lawyer sighed and muttered, We're going to need to reevaluate our approach. Translation: they had nothing. As they packed up, Vanessa shot Mark a look that could have melted steel. This isn't over. Mark smiled. Oh, I know. But what Vanessa didn't realize was that Mark wasn't just protecting his money. He was about to expose the whole damn game. Because while Vanessa was busy trying to rob him blind, Mark had been busy investigating. And guess what he found? Jake, and a whole lot of receipts. If Vanessa thought she could pull off this heist smoothly, she clearly underestimated the power of a man with nothing to lose and an internet connection. Because while she was busy trying to rob him blind, Mark was playing detective. And oh boy, did he find some gold. See, Vanessa wasn't just trying to divorce him. She was trying to cash out. And Jake? He was coaching her through it like some sort of divorce guru. Mark found everything. First, social media. Vanessa had been careless. Too many likes, comments, and conveniently timed check-ins with Jake. Then came the real smoking gun, a tip from an unexpected source. A mutual acquaintance, Matt, messaged Mark one evening, Hey man, we're not close, but I think you should see this. Attached, screenshots, Jake and Vanessa's texts. And let me tell you, they were a masterpiece of stupidity. Once the settlement's done, we'll have everything we need. Don't back down. Make him feel guilty if you have to. He owes you. We'll start fresh once you've got the money. Oh, sweet irony. Not only was Vanessa trying to take everything, but she was doing it with a guy who clearly had no long-term plans for her. Classic case of leave your man for the side piece, only to realize the side piece never wanted full-time work. Now, Mark had a choice. He could sit on this information, or he could burn her world to the ground. Can you guess what he chose? That's right, the nuclear option. He started leaking the texts, carefully, strategically. Mutual friends? Check. Her family? Check. Her work acquaintances? Oh, hell yes, check. And just like that, her entire narrative collapsed. The poor, heartbroken wife trying to move on from a difficult marriage? Gone. The strong, independent woman reclaiming her life? Shattered. The second people saw the text, Vanessa's support system evaporated. Even her own brother, who had originally taken her side, called Mark and said, Dude, I had no idea. I'm sorry I ever believed her. Jake? Disappeared faster than a free sample table at Costco. Turns out Jake wasn't in it for the long haul. He was in it for the scam. And when the scam failed, he ghosted. Now Vanessa had nothing. No settlement, no assets, no Jake. And the cherry on top? She was now the town scandal. Mark, meanwhile, slept like a baby. Because while Vanessa had spent months planning her perfect exit, she never realized Mark had already won. Vanessa was not handling losing everything well. At first, it was denial. She left Mark voicemails dripping with fake sincerity, the kind of calls where she pretended to be the victim of her own stupidity. Mark, I think we should just talk. Things got messy, but we can fix this. I know we've had our differences, but what we had was real, right? Oh, honey, no, it was not. Then, when Mark ignored her calls, she switched to rage mode. I can't believe you would do this to me. After everything I gave up for you. What exactly did she give up? The opportunity to rob him blind? Mark just let the messages pile up, each one getting less coherent and more pathetic. And then came the desperation. Her texts turned into bargaining. Okay, look, we don't have to fight like this. Let's settle this and move on. Just talk to me, please. I'll drop everything if we can just talk. Translation: I lost. Please let me claw my way back. But Mark? Oh, Mark was already sipping his coffee, enjoying his peaceful, drama-free life. And the best part? Vanessa's family had completely abandoned her. Her brother, the one who originally sided with her, straight up apologized to Mark. I didn't know what she was doing to you, man. I'm sorry I ever took her word for it. Even her closest friends, gone. Vanessa had spent months setting up the perfect con, but now she was just another cautionary tale. Mark, meanwhile, he got the house, he kept his savings, he kept his investments, and most importantly, he kept his sanity. Now, as he sat in his newly reclaimed home sipping coffee in his Vanessa-free kitchen, he smiled, because for the first time in a long time, life was good again.